Hello, I'm Padma Rao and you are watching WION, World is One News, India's first global channel. And we're really global tonight, all night, into the wee hours of the morning with our exclusive all-night coverage. We've titled it The Trump Card on the ongoing trip by Prime Minister Narendra Modi to the United States. And, of course, the much-awaited meetings with the Secretaries of State, Defense and, finally, President Donald Trump. WION has its ear to the ground in Washington, D.C. as well. We have our correspondent Archit Seshadri on the ground bringing us all the details, interviews and insights into what makes America and the Americans tick, what they think of India and much more. We have a packed show for you tonight, and joining me on it are several distinguished guests. I am going to soon be joined by Ms. Dr. Harinder Sekhon, who's a senior fellow of the Vivekananda Foundation. She's an expert on US-India relations. I'm going to be joined by Mr. Achal Kumar Malhotra, who's a former diplomat who has quite a lot of experience in the Russian Federation and all over the world. And he's done this sort of trip many times from the other side of the curtain. I'm also going to be joined by my colleague Taha Siddiqui, our Pakistan Bureau Chief, and I will also be joined by Saad Hamadi, who is our Bureau Chief in Dhaka. And joining me will also be our London Bureau Chief, Mandy Clark, all the way from London. So as you can see, we have a packed show for you tonight. I'm also joined by Nitin Gokhale, a senior colleague of ours and an expert at analyzing defense issues and many other matters that concern US-India policy. Nitin, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. What is likely to be the top agenda when the leaders of the two biggest democracies meet?
Well, I think, Padma, to begin with, if you look at the broad strokes of the relationship, I think both Modi and Trump would like to assess each other's stand, sort of try and get along with each other. Both are very strong personalities, as we know. And perhaps the ice-breaking session, it will be like an ice-breaking session for both of them. They haven't met really one-on-one. And I think that will be the underlying theme of the first meeting between the two leaders. But going beyond the photo op and the optics of the meeting itself, you are aware that the Indo-US relationship has over the years got quite broadened in various sectors, be it climate change, trade and commerce, or even sharing intelligence, information, even counterterrorism. But more than anything else, in my mind, I think defense is central to Indo-US relationship. In fact, that is the fulcrum around which the India-US relationship revolves. Given the fact that both have converging interests in Asia-Pacific, of course, the US military-industrial complex would want to sell many more platforms and weapons to India, given that India is in dire need of some of these technologically advanced and technically sound platforms. The Indian military needs it as of yesterday, in fact. But going beyond that, I think the shadow of ever rising and assertive China in Asia Pacific is what will keep India and US together. As you are aware, the exercise Malabar that the two navies used to conduct bilaterally has now been expanded to include Japan. Although Australia desperately wants to join that exercise, I think we'll have to wait and watch what happens on that front. So the bottom line is this relationship has been institutionalized to a large extent, but where it will go from here will depend on how the two leaders actually react to each other and how they hit off or they don't hit off. That will be the key to the Indo-US relationship going forward.
Right. Stay right there, Nitin. I'm joined by Archit Seshadri, my colleague in Washington, on the ground in Washington. He's been covering, all the events there for the last 2 days. Archit, what do you have for us? What's the latest? What's happening on the ground?
Thank working group. They will form a working group to look at market access issues.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. The very latest at this point is Prime Minister Modi's inside this hotel here. This is the Willard Intercontinental Hotel in Washington, D.C., where he's having those crucial talks with the members of the White House, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, and before that, the Secretary of Defense, James Mattis. Crucial talks about defense relationships and building better bridges with India and the United States. In about an hour from now, in fact, Prime Minister Modi will head out this way in a convoy over to the White House, a few blocks away from this location. We're going to be headed there shortly, but he's going to be over there meeting with President Donald Trump in a one-on-one discussion for about 20 to 30 minutes. After that, in the afternoon, there will be a cocktail reception hosted by Vice President Mike Pence. Then in the evening, there will be a working dinner with President Trump as well as Modi. Modi will be the first leader, an international leader, to be invited by the Trump administration to have those crucial talks. So that's sort of the agenda right now for this day. And then, of course, this evening, Modi heads out to Amsterdam as part of his three-nation tour. So lots happening, lots of tight security around the Willard Intercontinental Hotel. So certainly the big question of the hour is how much will they be able to address? What type of conversations will they be able to address in that meeting today here in Washington, D.C.?
You know, this is Washington, D.C. It's a country that's been subject to a lot of terror, well, not as much as in Europe, but there has been very tight security in the United States as well. Could you tell us, you know, what is it like down there on the ground? Is there a lot of security?
Yeah, Padma, that's a very interesting point that you bring up. Here, there's certainly a lot of Secret Service agents. There is cops. Even at the Modi event yesterday at Tyson's Corner, you know, it was extremely heavy security. I mean, we had to get into the hotel 3 hours before the event even started. And then once you went to a certain floor, you couldn't get back down. You couldn't leave the building. So there were Secret Service agents lined up. There were police. There were bomb sniffer dogs to check equipment, to check people coming in. There was those security lines to walk in to check each and every visitor walking in. A very similar situation here. You know, this is a block. I can see the Capitol from my vantage point here, the White House here behind me. So Washington, D.C., known for its security, known for its strict measures, and especially when there is a foreign leader like Prime Minister Modi, they don't take any chances at all. Lots of security. But, you know, what is interesting, Padma, is we haven't seen a whole lot of local media coverage. I mean, we looked at the papers, the Washington Post, the New York Times, not a whole lot of media coverage in the papers or the networks here with the Modi and Trump meet. Instead, there's a lot of time being given to the domestic issues, including the Russian involvement allegedly, as well as the Obamacare repealment. So Trump perhaps his plate full on more domestic policies, not enough time to address foreign policy. So an interesting development here on how the U.S. media is covering the story.
Looks like an Indian summer out there, Archit. It looks really, really warm. Is it that warm?
Oh, it's certainly hot here, Padma. You know, we thought, you know, we had the heat in Delhi. Here, it's quite hot, and the politics are certainly about to get even more heated up. The big question is between these two leaders, Modi and Trump, we want to find out the chemistry, the body language. We know they're strong personalities, strong leaders, both on social media. Modi with 31 million followers, Trump with nearly 33 million. Who will dominate the conversation? Who will have the last word? Trump tweeted this weekend saying he looks forward to hosting a true friend. So certainly the tone is set, the agenda is set. The big question is whether it's trade, defense talks, terrorism, technology, H-1B visas, or other policies between India and U.S. How much will they accomplish in this one-day unofficial visit? That is the big question. Hopefully we'll get our answers in the coming hours. We're about to go to the White House within an hour, so we'll be able to give you an update shortly.
Great, Archit. Thanks so much, and stay cool. Don't get too hot under the collar. Meantime, I'm joined by a plethora of really, really good guests. I have Dr. Harinder Sekho, who is a senior fellow of the Vivekanand Foundation. She's joining us on Skype, or she's joining us actually via OB. And I also have in the studio with me Mr. Achal Kumar Malhotra, who's a senior diplomat who has represented India all over the world. So he's done a lot of these official tours before. And I'm also joined by Mandy Clark, who's our London bureau chief. She's joining me via Skype. And we're also joined by Karthik Ramakrishna, Professor of Public Policy from the United States. Welcome to all of you. I'll come to you, Mr. Malhotra.
Sure.
We're really looking at the, we're really looking at terrorism. Terrorism plagues India, and terrorism has been on the cards very much as a subject in discussions with the United States. In what form is it likely to come up? Is it likely to come up at all on this discussion?
Oh, well, yes, definitely terrorism is going to come up. There is absolutely no doubt about it. And there is absolutely no doubt about it that terrorism needs to be fought. We have a convergence of opinion and views on that. But where we don't have a convergence, or at least, or maybe not, definitely we don't have a convergence, is how to handle the Pakistan's role in the whole game.
Right.
You know, we would like America to demonstrate that they understand that Pakistan is the factory of terrorism.
Right.
And if terrorism, Islamic fundamentalism or otherwise, is affecting the international community, it is originating from, not that they don't know.
Right.
But then they make statements like in the middle of the visit or on the eve of the visit that India is our strategic partner, but we have a productive partnership with Pakistan.
Right.
Now, what does that productive partnership mean?
Yes.
So it means that they still think that they can't do without Pakistan as far as the stabilization of situation in Afghan-Pakistan region is concerned. And that doesn't help us. So there is a convergence. Yes, we must fight terrorism. You will find a full paragraph in the joint communique. But to what extent are they willing to twist Pakistan? Only small little, signals are coming from there. There is a bipartisan bill which has been moved, which is seeking the revocation of the special status of major non-NATO ally that Pakistan enjoys vis-a-vis USA. Or President has suggested that whatever military aid and assistance is being given to the various countries,
right,
it may be converted into loans.
Right.
So that might affect Pakistan.
Yes.
But other than that, will there be a substantial departure or a U-turn? Definitely no U-turn, but a departure from US's policy hitherto vis-a-vis Pakistan, that remains to be seen. And I don't think it will come in this visit.
Yeah. I'm now going to my colleague Taha Siddiqui, the Pakistan Bureau Chief for WION. Welcome on the show, Taha, and we all wish you a very, very happy Eid, all of us from India and from WION.
Thank you. Yes, same to you.
Taha, we're discussing terrorism. As you know, that's a prickly issue, and it is likely to be on the agenda, as Ambassador Malhotra was just telling us. But how far are they going to go? From our point of view, you do know, we believe that Pakistan sponsors and supports terrorists and infiltrates them into India. Now, tell me, Taha, what are the let's go to a happier story. What are the atmospherics in Pakistan about Prime Minister Modi's visit? Is there much talk in the media or amongst ordinary people?
Well, as far as whether or not media is covering here, leading up to Eid, there were many incidents locally and domestically with what happened in Bahawalpur with the incident of the the tanker, the oil tanker, or then some terrorist attacks in the tribal belt and in Quetta. So most of the media is focusing on that, and then there is Eid also. I tried to contact the Foreign Office to get a statement from them, but they said that right now we're not operating, so we will come back to it and we will see how the visit goes.
Right.
And then following that, then they will probably issue a statement if, for example, there is any sort of focus on Pakistan or any statement that comes out of Pakistan. But at the same time, one thing is that Pakistan is concerned with, and we've seen that just a week ago there was this report that came out in some international press in which there was this sort of talk of the United States coming down hard on Pakistan and changing the policy. And we do know that there is a review going on right now of the Afghanistan-Pakistan policy. The Afghanistan-Pakistan office that the Obama administration had started recently shut down, which was under Richard Holbrooke's time. So all of that, given all of that, there is a lot of jitters in Pakistan. The administration here has been sort of, expecting for the worst, given the fact that there is this view that Trump is much closer to India, and that already started happening in last years of Obama's administration.
Right.
So given those contexts, Pakistan has already started, if you've seen in the last few months, Pakistan has already started sort of, closing itself to different new allies in the region. For example, there were these Pakistan-Russia military exercises that happened. China, definitely Pakistan has been, very much more engaged with China in the the last couple of years. So Pakistan is already hedging bets, given the fact that there is this major review going on in the US with regards to Pakistan and Afghanistan, and Pakistan is not expecting something positive out of it.
Right. Thanks very much, Taha. Do stay on. Just a last word before I let you go, because I do know that you have festivities to look forward to. What about the, what are the media saying about Prime Minister Modi's visit in Pakistan?
Well, as far as right now, it's just being covered from the extent of that, there's going to be defense deals. That's what we were getting to know here in Pakistan. There has been a lot of talk of that, especially the very fact that, there have been these nuclear deals in the past, civil nuclear deals in the past with India. That had come under criticism earlier on when they had happened. And now we're hearing about whether or not they're true or not, whether or not they will come through or not. But that is what the media is focusing on. Apparently, there is supposed to be some deal with regards to drone technology, with regards to some other defense deals, and that is what Pakistan is also again sort of very uncomfortable with, and that's what the editorials here, most of the media are focusing on these defense deals between the US and India, and which Pakistan thinks that it also deserves because of the fact that it has been an ally with the US.
I can't hear you. Thank you. Thanks very much, Taha. Now, I'm going to go to Karthik in the United States, as well as Dr. Harinder Sekhon, because I wanted to actually pick up from where Ambassador Malhotra left off. Ambassador Malhotra was a little, not so optimistic that anything's going to change about United States policy as far as Pakistan is concerned and as far as reining in terrorism is concerned, simply because they see Pakistan as strategically useful. Karthik, where do you stand on that?
Reining in terrorism, which is affecting us.
Reining in terrorism, which is affecting India. Karthik, I'd like to take that to you. Perhaps you have a different, you sense something different living in the United States as you do.
Well, I think there's a lot of similarity here because we expect changes in elections to lead to dramatic changes in policy. And we're seeing some elements of that, for example, with climate change. But when it comes to security, there's not that much that changes in terms of the fundamental security factors, especially in places like South Asia, in Asia. So while we might see some tinkering in the edges, there's not going to be a fundamental change between even, say, the Bush administration and Trump.
Karthik, I think you're breaking up there. We'll get you back. In the meantime, I have news that there are some very, very new visuals coming in. Let's take a look at what we have. We have Prime Minister Modi there meeting Rex Tillerson. You see the two flags. Meanwhile, let me go back to Dr. Harinder Sekhon and take the same question that I posed to Karthik before we got cut off or had a bad Skype line. Dr. Sekhon, are you pessimistic or are you rather optimistic that, if these two leaders hit it off, that there might actually be some sort of, change in the United States policy towards Pakistan and reining in terrorism?
I think the United States, what we witnessed over the last couple of years is that they're running out of patience with Pakistan. And I think it's also a lot to do with the economics, and the congressmen and the people are questioning the US aid to Pakistan, which, the Americans have been pumping in aid to the tune of 30 billion has been spent on this war against terrorism, and without any visible results. So I think, but there will not be a radical change, because even if you see that the latest Afghanistan security conference, India was not invited, and it was United States, Pakistan and China which took certain decisions. So I think there will be no radical change. The US is fully apprised of what Pakistan, the negative role Pakistan plays in destabilizing the region. But for the United States to completely dump Pakistan is not feasible, because I think they justify it, because as long as their troops remain in Pakistan, they need to be engaged, in Afghanistan, they need to be engaged with Pakistan, and they need Pakistan to, as a supply line, because the Central Asian line route is still not very stable.
Right.
So to expect that there will be a radical change or they will let Pakistan implode, I don't see that happening in the likely future. Of course, there's greater empathy with India and what India faces, but I think that's what it's going to be, a little bit of the stick along with the carrots.
The stick with the carrot. Mandy Clark in London. What is the London media saying? What are the British press? What is the British press saying about this visit? Or are they saying anything at all?
And not a lot has been picked up on the in the local media. However, the big interest is how the handshake will go down. Of course, Donald Trump's handshake has always been seen as a bit of a power play. So there's a lot of analysis. That in one newspaper they pointed out that both are very prolific on Twitter. So they're waiting to see if Modi will dodge the handshake or how that will play out. So it's a bit of a lightweight sensibility. Britain isn't really following this. There's been a lot of domestic news with the government, the elections, the results, and a coalition decision. So that has been dominating the news agenda here, but they will be looking with interest what comes out of it. Both India and the United States are very good friends and allies to Britain, so it's in their interest that they form good alliances as well.
Mandy, what about trade relations? Because as Brexit draws closer, and the United States and the United Kingdom being traditional allies, is India's coming closer to the United States in terms of trade relations? Is that something that the British may perhaps be looking forward to, in a sense, given what they're going to lose by exiting the European Union?
Absolutely, and Theresa May made it very clear that drawing on the historical links and the closeness of India was one of her priorities. She was the first leader to visit, of course, the United States when Donald Trump had become the president. As the leader, when she became prime minister, the very first country she visited was India. These are two very important trade links. This is absolutely what Britain sees. Important trade links with India. Theresa May and the government have made that very clear. Of course, the United States is a powerhouse economically. They do want a trade deal done very quickly. So it's only to the benefit of Britain if those two countries get along. They see good trade relations forming, so in the hopes that they could piggyback these trade relations. They absolutely do want solid links to both countries.
Right. Stay with us, Mandy. I'll just come back to Ambassador Malhotra in the studio with me and pick up what Dr. Sekhon said. She mentioned, we spoke about dumping Pakistan. Now, the question really is, and I'm going to take that to Karthik as well, does India really want the United States to dump Pakistan? What does India want the United States to do to ensure that Pakistan acts against terrorism, Ambassador?
Well, I mean, how would you like to define what do we mean by dumping Pakistan? I think this is a loosely used phrase that we have been using to convey that we would like USA to pressurize Pakistan so that he behaves and, it stops sending promoting cross-border terrorism, using terrorism as a state policy, and to the extent possible acting upon the terrorists who are known for being anti-India, raiding them in putting some curbs on their movements, controlling Hafiz Saeed and the types of the characters that we have in Pakistan, Dawood Ibrahim and all those kind of stuff. Pakistan's disintegration or Pakistan's instability is not in our interest. Why should we like we will be an unstable country? But to the extent Pakistan is being instrumental in affecting our interests directly or indirectly, we would like USA to pressurize, because if they want us to be partner in fighting terrorism, then they should be playing their role also. We are willing to play our role to the extent possible, but they should be willing to play their role. We are with them in fighting terrorism anywhere in the globe. We are on the same page as far as the concept is concerned, as far as the theoretical question of fighting terrorism is concerned. But if we are ready to play our role, they should also be willing to come forward. Like Dr. Shekhon said, and I said, I am not very optimistic. There are no substantial dramatic changes going to be visible. But even if these small things are done, if there is a curb on financing, if the status is removed, and small little messages are given, so probably
you might see some progress there.
It might see some progress. The flip side of this is that Pakistan may rebel.
Yes.
It may backfire.
Hold that thought, Ambassador Malhotra. We're really looking at, let's sort of suss out what we're looking at in this segment. We're looking at terrorism. Yes, that's what's likely to be the top agenda when the leaders of the two biggest democracies meet. Even yesterday, while speaking to the Indian diaspora, Prime Minister Modi spoke on the issue. Let's listen in to what he said.
आज विश्व आतंकवाद से परेशान है। यह आतंकवाद मानव जात के ऊपर दुश्मन है। विश्व के कई देश जब भारत आतंकवाद की बात बताता था आज से 20-25 साल पहले, उनके गले नहीं उतरता था। विश्व के लोगों को लगता है ये तो आपका लॉ एंड ऑर्डर प्रॉब्लम है, क्योंकि उन्होंने भुगता नहीं था, अनुभव नहीं किया था। आज विश्व में किसी को टेररिज्म समझाना नहीं पड़ रहा है, टेररिस्टों ने समझा दिया है।
That was the Prime Minister on terrorism. Nitin, let me take what Ambassador Malhotra said to you. He said something interesting. He said that we are, in a way, on the same page as Pakistan as far as terrorism is concerned. But are we really facing terrorism from the same groups? How do you see that?
Well, I think Pakistan, this kind of a thought process has been sold by Pakistan that they are also victims of terrorism. Yes, internally they are victims of terrorism, but remember the TTP and the Haqqani network that Pakistan battles. Actually, they nurture the Haqqani network for use in Afghanistan, and Pakistan gives shelter and help, and in fact uses or sort of terms the Lashkar-e-Taiba and the Jaish-e-Mohammed as their strategic assets against India. The entire proxy war that is being fought by Pakistan in Jammu and Kashmir is through these two groups, which have been described as two of the deadliest groups. At least the Lashkar-e-Taiba has been described as one of the deadliest terrorist groups in the world. So to equate the two countries or the kind of terrorism that is being faced by the two countries, Pakistan is actually being double-faced about it. They are speaking in folk tongue. So I don't think we should really take that seriously. But I mean, we are aware of the American compulsions of keeping Pakistan in good humor, keeping them supplied with arms and aid. Although all precedents down the years have made noises of sort of punishing Pakistan or making Pakistan behave, but they have never very clearly come out in support of India vis-a-vis Pakistan. There has been some kind of a dehyphenation, of course, in the American mind and in the American policy establishment about India and Pakistan, but there's never been really very categorical condemnation of Pakistan from the Americans, and therefore we should be pragmatic about it. We should be a realist. We should take a realistic view about it. When I say we, the Indians, and fight our own battle with the proxy war that Pakistan has launched since 1990 in Jammu and Kashmir. So therefore, I don't think with respect to Pakistan we'll have much progress. Although sharing of intelligence and efforts on counter-terrorism there will be a lot of progress. The Americans once in a while do give us information, do share intelligence that they get about the Lashkar-e-Toiba or the Jaish-e-Mohammed.
Right.
But beyond that, I think it's India's own battle, and India must continue to fight it.
Right. Let me go to Mandy. Mandy, where does the UK see India? Does the UK see India as an ally, perhaps in the war against terror, not distinguishing between, my freedom fighter and your terrorist? Or is the United Kingdom's position also more or less like that of the United States, tending to hyphenate India and Pakistan as one entity?
Not quite hyphenated. They do have a good understanding of both countries, but they're unwilling to disengage with Pakistan because they see Pakistan as a failed state would be more dangerous when Pakistan does not provide information. Britain is at greater risk. So it's the spy networks, those agencies that give the British Secret Service, eyes on. They're aware of what possible terror attacks that Pakistan is aware of. So it's those intelligent networks Britain finds primary for them foiling plots, and terror has been dominating the UK here because the amount of terror attacks that have happened. One of the bombers was born in Britain in one of the attack in Borough Market. So very much keeping those relationships, those the intelligence and gathering relationships between both services is important for Britain. It's unlikely they're going to step away from the relationship with Pakistan, but they do see it as two very different relationships. They have a very strong relationship with India.
Right, I'm joined by Saad Hammadi, who's our bureau chief in Bangladesh. Welcome to the show, Saad, and your colleagues at WION in New Delhi wish you a very, very happy Eid.
Thank you.
Now, just before I come to you, Saad, do stay with us. I did have a follow-up question to Dr. Sekhon. Dr. Sekhon, we've been talking about whether the United States has ever taken action or will ever take action against a country it considers its strategic ally, despite the fact that that country may, perhaps be accused of harboring terrorists. Dr. Sekhon, you are an expert. You've watched the Indo-US policy for a very, very long time. Has there been a precedence ever of the United States doing that, actually taking up for someone else's problems, in this case India?
I think the United States has tightened certain financial doles which they were giving to Pakistan, but that is because the US is getting questioned. The congressmen are questioning this aid which was being given to Pakistan. I do not think the United States is going to come down very heavily, because what they really need to do is to actually close the terror camps, and we've had a list. India has been providing these lists to the United States for over a decade and a half. And the Murid-K terror camps, the funding which comes to them. Now, these are things which the US, with all the intelligence paraphernalia at its disposal, it can act against Pakistan. But the way what happened in with Osama bin Laden, you mean to say the Pakistan army was not aware that he was living over there? So these are things which the United States has been questioning Pakistan, but I do not think that they're ready or in a position, they will justify their actions, and they will not break relations with Pakistan. And as the ambassador said, it is neither in India's interest if Pakistan implodes, and this is what I've said earlier. But what we need is more accountability from Pakistan for its actions, and especially where there is proof. I mean, there's enough proof about Pakistan's role in the Mumbai attacks, and I think the United States has given us the intelligence but not backed us enough in questioning the perpetrators of the Mumbai attacks in 2008. So this kind of backing from the United States will not come, because it's something which it maintains a fine balance between India and Pakistan and its own interests.
Saad Hamadi, what is the mood like in Bangladesh? Is anyone talking about Prime Minister Modi's visit? What is the media saying and what are ordinary people saying?
Well, essentially, there is no particular discussion as to the discussion between Prime Minister Modi and Donald Trump at this time, but definitely security analysts here are watching closely on how this develops, the discussion between the two prime ministers, the US president and the prime minister, how it develops. Because for Bangladesh's interest in this regard, US and India have become very close allies over the recent years, and that will have an effect on Bangladesh as well, on how the relationship with the two countries develop. In the recent past, Bangladesh has experienced some serious terrorism in the country, the terrorist activities that have taken place, particularly last year. So that will have an effect because last year the U.S. Secretary at that time, Secretary.
I think we're losing you there, Saad. Let me go take that question to Ambassador Malhotra. Ambassador Malhotra, how are the neighboring countries of India likely to be looking at this visit? Are they looking at it more as an opportunity to be taken along, in sort of India's wake towards greater prosperity, or is there, more a feeling of envy?
Well, I think, our neighborhood, as you know, is very strange. And there is no uniform approach as far as our neighborhood is concerned towards India. Each of the country has its own approach. But I'm sure that they will look at this visit as an important contributing factors toward the stability of the region. Because, suppose, hypothetically, if USA decides to vacate this strategic space, move out of it, who is going to fill it up? Yes, we like to call ourselves, emerging global player, leaders and all that. I think we are a marginal player for the moment. Leadership will come much later. So China will move in. China is already very aggressive about it. There is a realization, whatever be the approach of our neighborhood towards us, but there is a genuine realization in those countries that if they have to choose between India and China, it is definitely India. Because they know that China doesn't do anything for, without looking its real, motives, and the motive is to rule over the region. And therefore, even Sri Lanka and other countries where China is making investments, the idea is to ultimately give them so much of loan, so much of indebted, their economy, make them dependent upon China. So there is a realization. So therefore, they would like to see India coming closer to USA and the two together being a very balancing force in the region, so that the overall balance remains intact. Otherwise, they have to face the hegemony of China, if I may use that word, or whatever way the China would like to drive the region, they will have to put up with that.
Now let's take a look at whether the United States has really been, taking any sort of action or at least, requesting the government of Dhaka. Saad Hamadi, if you're still there, I'd like to take that question to you. Has there been, there have been a series of terrorist incidents in Bangladesh. There have been radicalized youth there, and I'm just wondering whether there has been any forward movement, as Dr. Sekhon was telling us, from the United States in terms of, conversations with Dhaka to rein in terrorists, to rein in extremism. What can you tell us about that?
The partnership between U.S. and Bangladesh is essentially live in the cooperation of the country. It exists there, but essentially in the field movement, it is always the Bangladeshi that go into action. There has been some serious crackdown on militancy, particularly after the July incident that was the deadliest in the history of Bangladesh, that claimed at least 20 civilians live foreigners, and that really shocked the country as to the extent that terrorism has spread around the country. I
think we've lost Saad again. Dr. Sekon, what do you think about what the neighboring countries are likely to expect from this visit? Is there still a certain amount of trepidation, or are they, or at least countries that are, have relatively good relations to India, like Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Nepal, are they expecting to ride along on what seems like India's wave of success?
I think Sri Lanka and Bangladesh themselves have a fairly stable relationship with the United States, and they look at the United States more as a stabilizing force in South Asia. But coming to China, I think the largest concerns are going to be from China. As it is today, we've read reports that they have stepped up an incursion on the border in the Sikkim area. And China always feels that the US and India have some kind of a grand design to keep China, which is directed against China, and India is some kind of a proxy for the United States to keep China hemmed in Asia. And so I think China is going to be very concerned at the outcome. Even before this visit, when President Obama had come here as the chief guest, I know interlocutors, when you spoke with Chinese officials and diplomats, they always say that India and the United States are forming an alliance against China, and you have to keep reminding them that in 1971 it was the United States and China at the height of the Cold War who did the Kissinger-Nixon diplomacy, and where was India? And in a globalized war you do not have any camps as such, and India is acting in its own self-interest, as China has over the years, and China is a much bigger country. They have a much more robust dialogue with the United States on about 200, they have something like 200 official dialogues with China, whereas India has recently just touched maybe the 60-odd dialogue figure. So we have a lot of catching up, but the Chinese have some kind of a selective amnesia, and they always say that US and India are acting against China. So I think there are going to be concerns. There are going to be some more stepped up provocations on the border with India to kind of send a message. But for the rest, I think the visit would be viewed in a positive light.
Great. If I were to ask you, Ambassador Malhotra, what would be or what ought to be, the main points when the discussion or the dialogue around terrorism does come up, whether it's during that brief 20-minute closed-door meeting or whether it's during the series of negotiations, what are the most urgent issues that you would like to see Prime Minister Modi touch upon?
You mean with reference only to terrorism?
As far as terrorism is concerned, yes.
Well, I think it's predictable because we are likely to apprise the United States of America, not that they don't know, but whenever a meeting of this type. So, overview is given, what is the situation in our region, and we are likely to convey our displeasure over the fact that Pakistan continues to be a state sponsor of terrorism, and Pakistan is a factory of terrorism, and it's in our mutual interest that while we are addressing the issue of terrorism in its entirety vis-a-vis the rest of the world at the international context, we must also look at this issue from the perspective of India also. And USA must not only should do, but should also appear to be doing something.
Right.
If they don't want to abandon Pakistan, fine, but they should at least discipline them. That's the least they can do for us. And on the practical part of it, we can talk about greater amount of real-time intelligence sharing.
Right.
And even the drones that they are going to supply us, in a way, we can deploy them in such a manner that eventually they might be of some use to us in keeping a track on what is happening in our, across the line of control.
Right.
So this is what definitely we will convey our expectations in black and white. and what they say.
And wait and watch.
What they say remains to be seen.
Remains to be seen.
And,
right. Hold that thought, Ambassador. Let's take a look at what may be on US President Donald Trump's mind. Now, the United States President will be hosting Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the White House shortly. Now, Donald, the businessman, did invest in India, and he had once stated that he was a big fan of the Hindu, whatever that means. The fact remains that Donald, the president, has had an unusual run in the first 6 months of his presidency. Even as the world surfaced and as Russian links, hounded his campaign, this whole scandal about the Russian links. And of course, the president has had a lot of learning to do, just trying to understand the North Korea leader, from that to budgeting, the Mexico wall. Now, what is on Donald Trump's mind as he's about to host the Indian Prime Minister Modi? WION takes a look.
We will make America great again. We're going to build a wall. The United States pays billions of dollars while China, Russia, and India have contributed and will contribute nothing.
That was some heady stuff. Is Donald Trump narcissistic, grandiose, and even disagreeable? Well, to each his own. But wait, Donald is scheduled for a 20-minute-long one-on-one interaction with his Twitter competitor, Prime Minister Modi, and then he'll take a question from a hostile press.
Go ahead, she's asking a question. Don't be rude. Don't be rude.
Don't be rude. Don't be rude.
Quiet. Quiet.
Quiet. Quiet.
Don't be rude. No, I'm not going to give you a question. I'm not going to give you a question. You are fake news.
Followed by a working dinner. Would that be too much for a president accused of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder? And what's occupying Donald's mind of late? A successful businessman, a popular television host, and now the US president. But Donald's glands certainly don't produce enough gastric juices. So, a working dinner with Prime Minister Narendra Modi would most likely involve more work and less food. It doesn't matter, of course, that it isn't Navratra and Donald's true friend Modi isn't fasting this time around.
Well, it's best to ask an expert what may be on Donald Trump's mind. Let's listen in to what they are saying before the meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump.
There is an inherent tension between America first and Make India, simply because Trump wants to keep jobs in the U.S. and Modi wants companies, American, Western companies, to go to India. But I do think there is still scope for cooperation. We look at what happened about this reported deal between Tata and Lockheed Martin to produce F-16 jets in India. So I think clearly because this relationship is invested with so much goodwill, there are ways to get around some of these irritants in the economic aspects of the relationship.
Let me take what we were discussing, Ambassador Malhotra, to Dr. Sekho. Dr. Sekho, if I were to ask you what might be the three most, or what ought to be the three most important things, or the two most important things at the top of the terrorism laundry list that Prime Minister Modi takes to the United States, what would they be for you?
Would you like me to stick to terrorism or go to the other issues now?
You can talk about anything you like, Ms. Sekho, but right now, I think we'll wrap up terrorism and then we'll move on to the other subjects.
Yeah, because I think it's going to be the economics of the relationship. The economic aspect is going to definitely figure very prominently in the talks. When Donald Trump was elected, and as you've been showing this little snippet, he is worried about jobs going to India. He has called China a currency manipulator. He has also initially said that the Indians are good immigrants, but H-1B visa is a very major issue with him because he thinks that the low-paid workers come from India robbing Americans of their legitimate jobs.
Right.
And second is the manufacture. And I think the biggest challenge is going to be his America First agenda with Make in India, and where they're going to find a meeting ground between these two diverse preoccupations or priorities of the two governments is going to be a major challenge. And it's not such a major challenge because if you actually start applying logic to co-production, it could be a mutually beneficial thing, as it has come out in the Prime Minister's meeting with the CEOs.
Yes.
And even the American companies, they see that there's profit of moving businesses to India. So if some kind of a quid pro quo can be worked out over there, the defense deals vis-a-vis the trade concessions, so I think that is going to be important.
Right.
And also
those,
the
are you saying
strategic
that
vision
those,
for the Asia Pacific.
Are you saying those are on your wish list? I want your wish list, Dr. Sekhon. What would be the three? Are you saying, for instance, that the H-1B issue?
My wish list would... Okay.
Go ahead.
My wish list would be that he sees a greater, more constructive role for India in the Asia-Pacific security architecture, and also a more sympathetic ear to the challenges India faces on its land borders. America would definitely want us to do more on the maritime domain with China and play a more robust role. And I would wish that Trump should be equally cognizant of our concerns on our land borders, both with China and with Pakistan, and the heavy constraints we function under.
Right, and let me go to Mandy Clark, our colleague in London. Mandy, I just want to, I'm sorry to dwell on the subject of terrorism. I think we've lost Mandy Clark. I'll take this to you, Ambassador Malhotra. Wish list, please. As an Indian, as a former ambassador, if you were if you were able to send a quick message to Prime Minister Modi, what would be your advice? The top three subjects.
Oh, you mean in the overall?
What would you like him to talk about? Overall, or you can, just within terrorism alone, whatever you like.
Well, within terrorism, I have already mentioned
yes.
that he should be able to convey very convincingly that there is a need to discipline Pakistan. And unless, this is done, we can't fight terrorism selectively. If you want us to be a partner in fight against terrorism, then you must understand and appreciate our, concerns also, and which are very serious concerns.
Right.
That's number one. And on H-1B visa, a lot has been talked about. I have a slightly different take. I look at this H-1B visa as a part of their overall immigration reform policy. And I don't think, and I'm not even sure whether this will be taken up in a very, very, forced manner. We are allowing this to, to resolve on its own in such a way that there is a compromise formula found. He has promised to his own constituency, hire American is my policy. Now the point is, their CEOs of the top companies have also told him a couple of days ago that as well as IT industry is concerned, Mr. President, we don't have the required manpower. We don't have that kind of qualified manpower which is coming from India.
Right.
Now the point is, what will happen if the salaries are increased, the profitability of our own Indian companies will slightly go down. So I think over a period of time, we'll let this issue play on as a part of the total immigration reforms. Yes. And whatever little reforms are done there, eventually there will be a compromise formula found. And so long as the demand and supply situation remains such that they need highly qualified IT experts, where else are they going to get from?
Right.
Only from India.
Right.
So this will resolve.
But there have been, let me take that question to Dr. Sekhon. Dr. Sekhon, there have been irregularities as well. There have been Indian companies who have sent their software engineers on B1, B2 visas when they should have been going on H1B visas. So, I mean, there has been a lot of that, those irregularities on the Indian side as well. How are those issues likely to be ironed out?
I don't think it's going to be taken up in great detail, because I think this is something which the industry people are going to talk amongst themselves. The PM and the two leaders may just touch upon this issue of H1B, and as Ambassador Malhotra has pointed out, America really doesn't have the requisite manpower to start filling in the gap if they start reducing the H1B entry of Indian IT personnel into the United States. So it's not going to be such a major part of the discussions. I think they're going to, this is, we should keep in mind, because Trump is an unknown entity, and this meeting is more to create a rapport, to build upon that rapport, and to look for continuities in the positives of the relationship.
Right.
And I think the focus is going to be more on the positives and Trump's make in America, or make America great again, and how Indian IT is also contributing to creating jobs. I think some of TCS and all have said that they're going to create jobs in the United States as well. So I think it's the positives which we, rather than go whining with our own wish list, we have to have a more proactive approach and say that India is also contributing to American jobs.
Right.
And it's a mutual, and I think both the Prime Minister wrote in his op-ed in the Wall Street Journal that
right.
it is a mutually beneficial partnership, and that is what we need to stress upon.
Right.
Our students alone are contributing $5 billion to America.
Google alone, that's right.
No, our students, the Indian students who are studying in USA are contributing significantly to American and IT companies who have invested in America.
Yes.
They are not only running away with profits, they are creating jobs there.
When you bring up the students, Ambassador Malhotra, and I think Dr. Sekhon could weigh in on this as well, there has been, the Canadian High Commissioner was telling me the other day that there's been a 270% rise in the number of Indian students applying to Canada instead of the United States. So they did some research and they found that these were kids who were originally planning to go to the US, but then changed their mind and have applied to Canada instead. Is that a worrying trend for the United States? Though it's I'm sure it's a very welcome one for Canada.
No, it should be, and probably the cost of studying in USA is much more than studying in Canada. And more importantly, there is a psychological aspect of it. There is a growing perception that there is, we can't call it exactly a hate crime against India, but generally, the mood against immigration, mood against immigrants, anybody who's a non-white, non-American is being targeted if he's dressing differently, if he's wearing a turban, and the Indians have also been attacked.
Let me take that to Dr. Sekhon.
Yeah.
Dr. Sekhon, is that more in the mind of the media? Would you say that picture that that brown-skinned people are being targeted, or people who look different are being targeted? Has the media somewhat exaggerated that aspect of Trump's America?
I don't think so, because the incidents of attacks have actually gone up. And America today is a highly divided society. And Indians are looked upon because apparently, people have been shouting because that H-1B, they see an Indian and they've started relating Indians only with H-1B visas. So I don't think that this is a concoction of the media. The media may be hyping up a few things, but I think Indians are looked at with a little bit of envy, that they are the more highly, because even Trump had made a statement maybe about a month or month and a half ago when he was addressing one of the universities, I forget where. Right. And he said that when he looks at the technical universities in the United States, right, what he finds is brown-skinned people coming to study there. So that actually shows a flaw with the US education system, and that their own candidates are not able to get loans to fund their higher education. So why blame India? Because India and the US universities coming here and holding educational fairs, trying to woo Indian students to come to the United States. So I think there is some kind of a mismatch, and there is a contradiction. And that is why what you talked just a few minutes ago, that a lot of students are going to Canada because they feel it's a safer option. And there is more stability over there because Canada allows them to work for 6 years, whereas in Trump's America, you don't know after you finish your education and having invested a lot of money in educating yourself, you have to come back to India. You would not be given an opportunity to work in the United States.
Right. Please hold your thoughts, Ambassador, and my other guest. We're just going to take a short break, and then I'm going to come straight back to you. Right.